Narcissists love to end relationships exactly like this. A narcissist rarely ends a relationship in a calm, honest, and emotionally mature way. They usually end relationships in a way that protects their ego while damaging your emotional stability. And the painful part is that most people do not recognize what is happening until much later. At first, the relationship may have felt intense, addictive, and emotionally powerful. The narcissist made you feel deeply wanted, emotionally chosen, and incredibly important to them. They mirrored your dreams, your emotions, and even your values to create fast emotional attachment. You felt seen in ways you may have never experienced before. And because of that emotional intensity, you trusted them more than you normally would. But narcissists often do not maintain relationships through genuine emotional intimacy. They maintain relationships through control, emotional dependency, and psychological confusion. And once they feel that control slipping away, the relationship begins changing dramatically. One of the first things they often do before ending the relationship is slowly become emotionally cold and distant without clearly explaining why. The affection becomes inconsistent and confusing. The communication starts feeling forced and emotionally disconnected. You begin sensing that something is wrong, but every time you ask about it, they deny it or make you feel irrational for noticing the shift. This creates emotional anxiety inside you, because you can feel the relationship changing, but they refuse to openly acknowledge what is happening. And this is intentional more often than people realize. Narcissists often prefer emotional confusion over direct honesty, because confusion keeps you emotionally chasing answers and validation. Instead of clearly saying they want to leave, they slowly drain the emotional safety from the relationship first. They become harder to reach emotionally. They stop reassuring you the way they once did. They become more irritated by your emotional needs and concerns. Then something even more painful usually begins to happen. The narcissist starts subtly rewriting the entire relationship dynamic. Suddenly, you become the problem in their version of events. Your reactions to their emotional neglect are framed as toxicity. Your sadness becomes neediness. Your confusion becomes drama. And your attempts to communicate become attacks. This is one of the darkest parts of narcissistic endings. They often push you emotionally until you finally react, and then they use your reaction as proof that you are unstable. The relationship slowly becomes emotionally exhausting for you. You spend more time defending yourself than feeling loved. You begin walking on eggshells to avoid conflict and emotional punishment. And without realizing it, your confidence slowly starts collapsing. But narcissists usually do not end relationships suddenly without preparation. Many of them emotionally detach long before they physically leave. While you are still trying to repair the relationship, they may already be mentally preparing their exit strategy. Sometimes they begin seeking attention from someone else behind the scenes. Sometimes they become unusually secretive with their phone and behavior. And sometimes they intentionally create emotional distance, so the breakup feels easier for them emotionally. Then comes the final phase that shocks so many people. The narcissist often ends the relationship in a cold and emotionally detached way that feels completely disconnected from the intensity they once showed you. After all the promises, affection, and emotional closeness, they suddenly act like the relationship meant far less than it did to you. This emotional shift feels deeply disturbing to the person being left behind, because it creates the painful question, was any of it even real? And sadly, narcissists often make the breakup even more emotionally damaging afterward. Instead of ending things respectfully, they may disappear without proper closure. They may ignore your messages completely. Or they may suddenly become cruel, dismissive, and emotionally harsh. Some narcissists even seem strangely calm after destroying someone emotionally. While you are struggling to process the pain, they appear emotionally unaffected and already focused on someone new. This deeply confuses the person they left behind, because healthy people expect emotional endings to contain empathy and reflection. But narcissists often focus more on protecting their image and ego than your emotional well-being. And one of the most painful things they do during breakups is make you question your own reality afterward. They may rewrite the story completely to others. They may act like they were the victim all along. And they may minimize everything they put you through emotionally. Meanwhile, you are left trying to understand how someone who once seemed so loving could suddenly become so emotionally disconnected and cold. But this is important to understand. Narcissists often struggle with authentic emotional accountability, So instead of ending relationships with honesty and emotional responsibility, they often end them through blame, confusion, avoidance, or emotional cruelty. And the reason these breakups hurt so deeply is because narcissistic relationships are usually built on emotional extremes. Extreme affection in the beginning, extreme confusion in the middle, and extreme emotional emptiness at the end. The person leaving the relationship often feels emotionally addicted to the connection, not because the relationship was healthy, but because inconsistency creates powerful emotional attachment over time. You keep replaying the good moments in your head. You keep wondering if the loving version of them will return again. You keep hoping the person from the beginning was the real version. But eventually, something painful becomes clear. The relationship was never built on stable emotional intimacy. It was built on emotional control, idealization, and validation. And once the narcissist feels they can no longer control the emotional dynamic, the relationship often loses its value to them. That is why many narcissists end relationships in ways that feel emotionally shocking and heartless, not because you meant nothing, but because their attachment was often tied more to control than genuine emotional connection. And healing begins the moment you stop chasing closure from someone who benefited from keeping you emotionally confused. Because real love does not leave you emotionally destroyed while protecting itself. Real love communicates honestly, takes accountability, and leaves with empathy even when things end. And once you truly understand that difference, you stop romanticizing the pain they left behind.